and also vital to our health and the health of our society and our planet. So I want you to know that some people call me a vegan. I like to call myself a reluctant vegan because I do miss a lot of the foods that I used to eat. And hopefully I'll have a chance to tell you a little bit about my personal health journey as this proceeds. But some of you may be listening and have a little reluctance. That's sort of a feeling that I had when I first started this journey, and I don't want to cause any suffering. So take the good, leave the bad. Just try and think about what life would be like if you change your diet a little bit. My goal and our goal of our medical team is to have all of the people that we touch flourish as they age. So let's get started. So today I'll discuss how we can shift from a traditional American-based diet to a plant-based diet. And I'll try and bring in some scientific research to support the benefits of the change. And I know that for many, I'll be preaching to the choir. Many of you have already made the shift to a plant-based diet, but there are a lot that are thinking about how to do it. And there are those that have tried it, and it's been so difficult to shift over to a plant-based diet that they've given up. We all know that the American Heart Association, the American Cancer Society, they all recommend shifting to a plant-based diet as a healthy pattern that reduces the risk of chronic disease. So even though what I'm going to talk about may hit a nerve today, just know that we're headed in the right direction by doing this. So before we dive into the details, let's establish the current state of the American diet. So it's interesting, it's called the SAD diet, the Standard American Diet. It's characterized by a high intake of processed foods, refined sugars, red meat, and dairy products that are low in fiber, fruits and vegetables that are high in fiber are typically not taken, and there are a lot of animal fats that are high in saturated and hydrogenated fats. So the American diet, most of you know, has been linked to a multitude of chronic health issues. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, around 10% of Americans meet the daily recommended intake of fruits and vegetables. Only 10% of our population is eating fruits and vegetables that they should be eating. And more than 50% of daily calories come from ultra-processed foods that cause chronic disease. There's enough research out there. We know this, but it's so hard to make the switch. The average American consumes excessive amount of sugar, saturated fat, salt, sodium, which are associated with increased risk of chronic disease, including heart disease, obesity, type 2 diabetes, and some forms of cancer. Keep in mind, though, that there are several factors that are contributing to this. It's not just that we make bad decisions. Have you watched TV in the evening and seen the commercials for the Big Macs and for the Arby's? We see these things and automatically we're drawn to it. Our taste buds actually salivate when we see pictures like that. And marketing people know what they're doing. They know how to market food. The other side is that a lot of processed food is very affordable. So if you go a lot of times, some free food giveaways, what are they giving away? They're giving away processed foods, American cheeses, all things that taste good. Don't get me wrong, I admit they taste good, but they're not healthy for us, and they're actually killing us. And they're causing children who are eating those foods to grow up into a life of bad health. The other part is we really don't know about nutrition. So how many of you have been on a diet? Or how many of you hear the paleo diet's good, the vegan diet's good, the South Shore diet's good. There's so many different diets out there. So we're confused. And then a lot of people don't have the cooking skills to switch over to a plant-based diet. And it's one of our hopes at the Traeger Institute. We hope to have courses, a lot of these will be online, on how to switch over to cooking from an animal-based. So the good news that we have is that we know that a plant-based diet can help address health concerns while providing additional benefits to our environment and for those who are concerned to animal welfare. So a plant-based diet is simple. It emphasizes whole, minimally processed food with a focus on vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds. That's sort of the master plant-based diet. Now, there's an argument out there that, well, this is not the paleo diet. This is not what we ate, thousands of years ago. And there's enough evidence now to show that we did eat grains and vegetables and fruit during the paleo period. Did we eat meat? Yes, they ate meat too. But it was a diet that was primarily plant-based. They've done a lot of research. I just read an article yesterday on this, that they've done a lot of research showing that 10, 15,000 years ago, people were eating plant-based. So what's the benefits of a plant-based diet? I've mentioned that it reduces chronic disease. And I could literally list 100, 200 articles that show that shifting over to a plant-based diet reduces chronic diseases. For example, in a study in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology, and there are a number of studies in cardiology that show that a higher intake of plant-based food is associated with substantially lower risk of heart disease. And it also lowers cholesterol. It takes away inflammation, so your arteries are not inflamed and the blood can flow freely. And it also increases your chances of decreases your chances of getting cancer. So there's so many ways, and we talk about diabetes. A plant-based diet can not only reduce but reverse type 2 diabetes. In one study, it showed that a plant-based diet reduced the risk of type 2 diabetes up to 34%. So there's really enough evidence out there to show that we should be shifting to this diet. A plant-based diet can also aid in weight management, as it is generally lower in calories and saturated fat than the traditional American diet. In a systematic review and meta-analysis published in the Journal of Internal Medicine, they found that plant-based diets resulted in greater weight loss compared to controlled diets. So there's also a number of articles on this. And the nice thing about a plant-based diet is you could eat as much, if you want to eat lettuce, you could eat as much lettuce as you want. You could fill your stomach with broccoli. You could fill your stomach with vegetables. It's healthy for you, and it's something that benefits you. Unless, let me put a caveat, when working with your physician, you may have some medical conditions that would prevent you from eating certain vegetables. So you always have to that's why I said, take what I say with a grain of salt. You have to be really careful to make sure that you don't have a disease or some physical ailment that would prevent you from eating certain vegetables. Improved digestion. Wow, this is really shifting to a plant-based diet, which is high in fiber, can promote regular bowel movements and prevent constipation. This is really important. And we're going to talk a little bit later about some of the ways to increase fiber into your diet. A vegan diet, there's research on it that shows that it improved movement within the bowel system. Secondly, plant-based diets improve gut health by promoting the growth of beneficial gut bacteria. A study in the Journal of Gut Microbes found that vegetarians had higher levels of beneficial gut bacteria compared to meat eaters. In my own life story, I have a history of colon cancer in my family. And before I went on the vegan diet, I always, every time I went for a colonoscopy, had polyps. Well, the last 2 times that I went for the colonoscopy, didn't have any polyps. Are they connected? I hope so. Thirdly, plant-based diets reduce inflammation in the gut, which improves digestion. A study published in the Journal of Nutrients found that a plant-based diet reduced inflammation markers in the gut compared to a traditional diet. And lastly, this is really important, plant-based diets reduce digestive disorders such as irritable bowel syndrome or inflammatory bowel syndrome. A study published in the Journal of Nutrients found that the plant-based diet reduced a number of symptoms to do with IBS. Overall, research shows that this plant-based diet can improve digestion by helping you remove the parts of you when you eat that you don't want to carry around for a very long time. Cancer prevention. Wow, this is really big because adopting a plant-based diet may also lower the risk of developing certain cancers. A review published in the Journal of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics concluded that there's a strong, consistent association between the consumption of plant-based foods and a reduced risk of cancer, particularly colorectal, breast, and prostate cancer. And there are a number of studies out there that duplicate this. So you could say, like, why does it do that? Well, plant-based foods are high in antioxidants. So fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, they all are rich in antioxidants which protect the body's cells from damage by free radicals. So, and free radicals are the unstable molecules that cause damage and contribute to the development of cancer. So you have your cell and that free radical is going to come and literally attack it. So when you say that food is rich in fiber, what does it mean? It means that it expands your stomach. It actually helps reduce the levels of circulating hormones in your body, such as estrogen, which is associated with an increased risk of breast cancer. It's low in saturated fat. It's a nice thing about it. You could eat your vegetables. And we're going to talk a little bit about cooking later. I went to a function this weekend and they had green beans, but the green beans were cooked for God knows how many hours with pork. I don't know how healthy they would be for me if I ate them. So it depends on how you cook them. But when you have low saturated fats, there's enough evidence to show that it does reduce breast cancer, colon cancer, and prostate cancer. And then also plant-based vegetables are rich in phytochemicals. The grains too. They contain a number of chemical compounds called phytochemicals, which have shown to have anti-cancer properties. For example, the compound sulforaphane found in broccoli and other cruciferous vegetables has been shown to inhibit the growth of cancer cells in laboratory studies. And whole plant-based foods are low in processing. So what happens is when you take something and you eat it naturally, your body naturally takes it in. But when you start processing it and mixing it and dehydrating it and doing all things to it that we've learned to do chemically, it ends up taking away the benefits of the food. And the more processed food you have, the more inflammation that you have. And that inflammation has been shown to cause chronic disease, also cause, we heard Dr. Jaika talk about Alzheimer's. Inflammation is one of the big key factors in causing Alzheimer's. And then there's other benefits. Some maybe are controversial to some, and I've had arguments with people over some of these. But a shift to a plant-based diet can significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And there's a lot of studies showing that. We could reduce emissions 42 to 84%, a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, sustainable land and water use by shifting to a plant-based diet. As a community, we will have more sustainable land and water use, according to studies that have shown that a plant-based diet requires 50% less land and 11 times less irrigation water than the current American diet. And then biodiversity. By reducing the demand for animal agriculture, a plant-based diet can help protect biodiversity. And as I said, this is a little controversial because you have arguments on both sides. Those farmers that are farming sustainably are very concerned with the earth and biodiversity. So that's a whole nother presentation that we could talk about that. But I urge you to actually look these things up. And then for those that are concerned animal welfare. So a plant diet promotes animal welfare by decreasing demand for factory farmed animals, which often suffer from inhumane living conditions and treatment. And so if you have ethical concerns about that, I laugh now that I have been plant-based now for over 4 years, going on 5 years, I guess. I sometimes, if I go to a restaurant or something and someone is eating a fish, for example, and I see the eyes looking at me, my animal welfare self comes on and says, "Oh," but this is all personal preference, and that's why I said, this is my opinion. Take the good, leave the bad. So how do we stop doing what we love to improve our health? So let me tell you a little bit about my story. So I have always been fairly active. I ran in high school and college. I was on the track team, and I ran all through my 20s and 30s. I did marathons, and I was always conscious about health. And I have in my family, there's a lot of cancer runs in my family. There's a lot of heart disease. My father had 7 brothers. They all died of heart disease except one. And I'll tell you his story in a minute. But I started going to a cardiologist when I was 29 years old. And I went to the cardiologist and I said, and I was not in healthcare at that time. So I went to the cardiologist and I asked the cardiologist, should I be doing anything different with my diet? He said, no, everything looks fine. Don't worry about it. You'll be fine. Just keep doing what you're doing and exercise. You'll be fine. So the 20s went by, the 30s went by rather quickly, the 40s went by. And in this slide, you'll see the foods that I ate, that I truly love. And when I say I'm a reluctant vegan, it's because many people that switch over to a plant-based diet abhor regular food. I want to call it regular food, the SAD diet. I truly don't. And I honor and respect anybody that wants to eat a plate of oysters, which I know on different conferences that I've gone to with many of the people that are probably watching right now, you know that I love all this food. I'm Italian. I grew up on cheese. I grew up on lasagna, spaghetti and meatballs. I grew up on foods that are delicious tasting to me. But what happened was, when I was in my late 40s and I went to the same cardiologist, he told me, well, your cholesterol all of a sudden is not doing so well. So you should go on a statin. And I was like, whoa, me? I'm not going on a medicine. So I didn't go on the statin. Then, as I got older and entered into my 50s and 60s, went back to the same cardiologist, and the cardiologist said, we have a problem. And I went, what's the problem? He says, well, your numbers, your cholesterol is really out of control. He said, I need to send you in for some heart test. And I went in for the heart test and found out that I have atherosclerosis. So 3 of my arteries were atherosclerotic. And I was like, okay, wait a minute now. I've been coming to you for the last 30 years, almost 40 years, and you've been telling me to do nothing. And now I have atherosclerosis. Now I have heart disease. And yep, I guess that's family. It's family. It's the reason why you have heart disease is because your family had heart disease. And I began to say to myself, well, if I'm not getting the advice that I need to take care of myself, I need then to go to someone who can help me. And I did a lot of research myself. My colleague, Dr. Fall, helped me on this. And we began to look at ways to reduce cholesterol and also to clear my arteries. Clear your arteries, you may say. Once they're clogged, you can clear them? Yes, there's enough evidence that shifting to a plant-based diet, and in this case, a no-oil plant-based diet, actually there's evidence, research evidence that shows that it actually opens up the arteries. So when I went to the doctor and they did all the heart tests on me, they also said I had an aortic aneurysm. It was mild, but it was an aortic aneurysm. So overnight, I went from being healthy to being sick, to having chronic disease. And I did my research. I contacted Dr. Esselstyn, who is a plant-based cardiologist from Cleveland Clinic, and went on his website. And I encourage you all to go take a look at his website. It's pretty impressive. And he promotes a plant-based oil-free diet. So I went on the plant-based oil-free diet, and I hated every minute of it. I missed all those foods that you're seeing right now. I miss pizza. I miss fried chicken. I miss chocolate cake. I miss all of it. But I have a family. I have friends that care about me. And I don't want to be the cause of my death. I'm going to die someday. But I want that cause to be something outside of my control. So I decided to switch to a plant-based diet. And when I went back to the doctor the next year, my aneurysm was gone. He said that it probably was a mistake in the x-ray or the CT scan that I had. I honestly didn't even tell this cardiologist that I was going to at the time. I didn't even tell him that I went on an oil-free plant-based diet because it was a waste. He's out there still, great guy. He's still taking care of patients and not really addressing the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is all of this food that I was eating. So I switched cardiologist and have a great cardiologist. Dr. Kim Williams is my cardiologist now, and everything's going great. And I am taking a statin. My cholesterol's much lower. My LDL is lower, which really shows, the evidence is showing that if you can keep those low, your risk of having a heart problem reduces. So that's my story. And that's why I call myself a reluctant vegan, because I still haven't made the shift in my head completely over to desiring the foods that you have in front of you. But it is getting easier over time. It is getting easier over time. And I'll tell you a little bit about that as we proceed in our presentation. So how do you make the shift? Okay. First, let me say, and I forgot to say this in the beginning, if you have questions, put them in the chat. We'll leave time at the end for questions. For many people, making a gradual shift to a plant-based diet is the effective approach. This is something very slow. So I had to go very slow in the beginning. I literally am so bad that over the holidays, we had family coming over to the house, and a lot of them eat meat. And my wife made a charcuterie tray for them. And in my refrigerator was all of my Italian favorites, prosciutto, which is a dried ham, and pepperoni, and cheeses, Parmesan cheese. And my wife and family laughed at me because when I opened the refrigerator and I saw them all, I said, hello, my loves, I miss you. I truly miss you. And after the holidays, my wife threw out the pepperoni, and I saw it in the garbage, and I went, goodbye, my friend. We were friends at one time, and I so enjoyed them all. But that shift now, they're gone. And hopefully I won't fall back, which I don't think I will. So the goal is to go slow, start incorporating meatless meals 1 day a week. So after this presentation, who's ever on here that has not already made the shift, try 1 day a week without meat, and then increase it to 2 days a week. And you'll see that over time, you'll get into a routine where it's a lot easier for you. And we'll talk about how to make that easy. So begin by identifying plant-based versions of your favorite meals. You can actually now, there's so much on the internet, there's so many websites. You can make a cashew cream with cashew nuts. You just either soak the cashew nuts, or I'm always running late, so I put boiling water on them for about 10 minutes, and I put them in a high-speed blender. You could use some vegetable broth or water or anything, any liquid, and it makes a cashew cream. You can snack on toasted chickpeas, which chickpeas are delicious, or have a black bean burger instead of a burger. Eating vegan pizza, so a veggie pizza, and you can put as many veggies as you want. Or making veggie lasagna with a tofu ricotta, which is very easy to make with either tofu, or you can mix tofu and cashews to make a delicious ricotta. Spaghetti with tempeh meatballs. These are something that's easy to do. Recipes are online. You just have to try it. And, you know, I miss my chocolate. I do miss my chocolate, and I do cheat every once in a while with chocolate. But, you know, you can make chocolate truffles. You could use vegan dark chocolate, some coconut milk, some vanilla, and unsweetened cocoa. So there are ways to replace what you're doing now with a vegan dish. So look at your food that you're eating and say, okay, I'm going to try this week one dish when I'm going to try something different to try and veganize or make it plant-based. So emphasize whole foods. So minimally processed-based foods, as they provide the most nutrients. First, you're going to go to your vegetables. Those are the easiest, your fruits and your vegetables. Whole grains, your legumes, your beans, your nuts, your seeds as the foundation to your diet. Dr. Esselstyn on reversing heart disease doesn't want you to eat nuts and seeds because of the oil. So, but for most of you out there that are listening to them, it's not a problem. You're able to do that with no problem at all. And then invest time in learning new plant-based cooking techniques, such as how to prepare tofu, how to prepare tempeh, how to cook with grains and vegetables, how to cook with grains and beans, how to make flavorful plant-based sauces and dressings. There are literally thousands of websites now out there. On the weekends, this is what I have found most helpful: batch cook. So chop up your veggies and put them in your containers. Do all your onions, do all your peppers, chop them all up on the weekend and put them in the fridge. Roast your veggies. And you don't have to roast them all the way. You can roast them for 10 minutes in a 350-degree oven, and they're fine for the week. Put them in a container. Cook your oatmeal on Sunday and cook your rice on Sunday. Cook 2 cups. Get an Instapot for those that are willing to use an Instant Pot. Use it, cook, do that on a Sunday. Put it in a container. Make a couple of sauces for your pasta. Make some tomato sauce on a Sunday or a Saturday. And make some salad dressings that don't have a lot of oil or no oil at all. Just lemon and Dijon mustard. And then keep them in your refrigerator. And then cook your beans. Now, a lot of people use canned beans, which I do a whole lot because I'm always behind schedule. So you could do that, or you could soak your beans the night before and then cook your beans on the weekend and then just keep them in the refrigerator. And then what do? So you have all this. So Monday night, you come home from work, and then you're able to take everything one by one and just make a dish. Take some black beans, take some vegetables, put it together, put it over your rice. It's very simple. It makes an easy meal, a tasty meal. Use your herbs and your spices to make them tasty. You'll have those of you that are still eating plant-based, still eating non-plant-based diet, you'll have your butter in the refrigerator. Just talk to it, but leave it in there. Try not to pull it out for taste. Try to develop your taste from the spices that you put in your food versus using the old methods of butter and salt to season everything. That's what we learned. So that's that. And then how to make the shift also is seeking support and resources. So connect with people who made the transition over to a plant-based diet, either in person or through online communities. And there are so many of them online. You're welcome to email me for advice. I will gladly share what I know. There are cookbooks out there, there are blogs, there's websites that focus on plant-based recipes and nutrition information. The cookbooks, some of the cookbooks that are out there is the Complete Vegetarian Cookbook, Oh, She Glows, and then if you're adventurous and you don't mind cursing, Doug Kitchen, which is probably a funny book if you don't mind some curse words, because they do curse in the book. But the recipes are delicious. They have a lot of tofu recipes, and I go to them frequently. And then online resources, Forks Over Knives, nutritionfacts.org is also another site. Nutritionfacts.org by Dr. Greger is something that you all should visit. If you don't even want to be plant-based, he has so much information, so much research on why we should all be plant-based. And then for a lot of recipes, I go to Minimalist Baker. So Minimalist Baker is a plant-based baker, and she's amazing and has recipes on anything that you want. So if you want, if you like your lasagna and you want to make it vegan, she'll tell you how to make it. There are also many social media groups and communities dedicated to plant-based eatings where you can connect with others who share your interest and get support and advice. We're hoping to start a group here at the Traeger Institute that really wants to make a commitment to a plant-based diet. And now we have this beautiful kitchen behind us, so we're definitely going to be using it. And then, going to a nutritionist or a dietitian can provide guidance. One of the problems that I've found is that a lot of nutritionists don't believe in a plant-based diet, but more and more are shifting that way because of the evidence. But that will help you get the nutrients that you need. And then there's actually a plant-based nutrition support group and the Vegetarian Society that you can go to too. Remember that shifting to a plant-based diet, is a journey. It's important to be patient with yourself and to seek out resources and the support to be successful. And if you're out and you end up sometimes at McDonald's or whatever, you're on the road and the only place to eat is McDonald's, try and be as healthy as you can. I have some of my vegan friends that will order a hamburger without the hamburger. But now a lot of these places are starting to get Impossible Burgers. A lot of fast food restaurants are serving Impossible Burgers. KFC now has the vegan type of chicken. While this is not the greatest, there's enough evidence to show that it's better than eating one of their hamburgers or one of their chicken patties. So search out other groups. Now, the big question, where will I get my protein? We are protein obsessed. I ask all of you, how many people in your lifetime, how many people have died of lack of protein that you've heard? In my life, maybe somebody's going to say they know somebody who died of lack of protein, but protein deficiency is not a common cause of death in the United States, as most people consume enough protein through the diet. Now, there are certain populations that are at risk for protein deficiency, and one of them is the elderly population, or those with malabsorption disorders, or people with eating disorders. So, you have to take what I say with a grain of salt. You have to watch and know who you are. But a well-planned plant-based diet that includes a variety of plant-based protein sources can provide all of the essential amino acids and meet protein needs. Remember, the leading cause of death is not lack of protein. It's chronic disease, such as heart disease, cancer, stroke, which are also often linked to factors such as poor diet, lack of physical activity, and tobacco use. So this shift can help us. It can help the planet. It can help animals. But we're wondering where we're going to get our protein. I still haven't answered that question, have I? So a person who weighs 155 pounds, that's me, needs about 56 grams of protein per day. And it's 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. Now, if a person's an athlete or has certain health conditions, they may need a little more. But this is an average person. I'm consider myself an average weight, average height. 56 grams of protein. And look at the different foods that you can get your protein from. A cup of cooked lentils, you could have chickpeas, your quinoa, brown rice, soy milk, almond milk. There's all different types of plant-based milks. 1 ounce of almonds is 6 grams of protein. Pumpkin seeds, 5 grams. Peanut butter, 1 tablespoon, 4 grams. So there's a lot of ways to get your protein. And I have not been concerned with protein over these last couple of years. And, I'm feeling okay. So let's look at what does a plant-based meal look like for you. So this plant-based meal for breakfast, this plant-based meal, number one, gives you about 88 grams of protein, which is well within the recommended range for a person 155 pounds. So, and these are rough estimates. So you'll have a tofu scramble in the morning. Have you ever had a tofu scramble? It's delicious. You have your peppers, you have your onions, nutritional yeast, you put your turmeric, you put, if you want to put some mushrooms, and then your tofu. And depending on how you make it, you can blend your tofu with a blender to make it creamy. You could add a little veggie broth, and if you close your eyes, you almost think you're eating eggs. So if you start with your tofu scramble in the morning, you have a little snack, your apple slices with almond butter, and then for lunch, chickpea and avocado salad. That's delicious, and it's your chickpea tuna. That's what it's called. Like, you don't put tuna, but you put chickpeas, you smash them, and you use some vegan mayo. Making vegan mayo is very easy to make it yourself. For a snack, roasted edamame. And then for dinner, lentil and vegetable soup. I love my lentils. They're my go-tos, and there's so many different kinds. There's black lentils, there's green lentils, there's the orange lentils, there's the French lentils, and they all cook different, they all taste different, they have a different chew. And then for dessert, you can have a Greek yogurt alternative. And I brought some samples with me to show you, to share with you. So you could do it. And if you're concerned, try and find a registered dietitian that can help ensure that all your nutritional needs are met. So don't worry about the protein as much as worry about getting good things in your mouth, good foods in your mouth. That's what's going to change your health. So what do we start with? Let's think about this. The big question is, what are we going to eat today? So I brought, and I hope you can see this, please tell me if you can't. I brought oatmeal with me today. Oatmeal is great. It's rich. It has more protein than most grains and contains vitamins and minerals. It contains antioxidants and soluble fiber called beta-glucan, which aids in emptying the bowel and prevents constipation. It also supports healthy gut bacteria. It's easy to make. As I said, you can make it either hot in the morning. It doesn't take more than 5 minutes, which I make, and I typically mix barley with it. I like to use the extra thick rolled oats, and then I put my berries on top, my blueberries, my blackberries. If you go on the nutrition facts, you'll and look up Dr. Greger, you'll see the Dirty Dozen. You have to be careful when you're eating some of the fruits because they're sprayed, so you don't want to hurt yourself. So be careful when you're doing that. But I put that, cinnamon, which is great for blood pressure, and that's typically my breakfast. You can make them the night before, and you could put them with a little almond milk or oat milk or soy milk. Put them in the refrigerator, and in the morning, they'll already be soft for you to eat. My other staple, black beans. So these are from Kroger. I try and get the non-salt. These have a little salt in them, sodium in them. So you want to be careful when you're buying beans or you're buying any can to look at the salt, and they do have no salt. I know we were out of black beans, and I know that my wife picked these up at Kroger, but they're inexpensive, 99 cents, somewhere around there. and I don't know if you knew this, but black beans have been around for like at least 7,000 years in North America. They're rich in antioxidants. They help protect your cells, heart disease and cancer, and they don't cause a spike in blood sugar. Another bean that's really good for you, garbanzo beans. Some of you know this. Now I'm showing you all the cans. You could get these, of course, all these beans you can get dried. You just need to, and I actually like them better. They have a better chew. Garbanzo beans. So an example on sodium, the black beans had 120 milligrams of sodium. The garbanzo beans have 90 milligrams. And these also come without salt. You just have to look for them. My one bit of advice is don't eat black beans or your lentils before you go for a massage. Just remember that, free advice. Another thing that you can eat that is jackfruit. So jackfruit is interesting. When I first saw it, I was like, what the heck is that? This actually, when you take it out of the can, or you can, this is in brine, you can, and this only has 35 milligrams of sodium, zero fat, zero saturated fat. It has 7 grams of dietary fiber, 100 milligrams of potassium. So jackfruit has been around a long time, and it actually has more minerals than apples, apricots, bananas, and avocados. It's high in vitamin C and even vitamin B. And it too contains antioxidants. And then to make things tasty, you can use nutritional yeast, which is delicious. It's a great source of vitamins and minerals. It contains all 9 amino acids found in animal products. So it helps reduce your cholesterol. It has a low glycemic index, strengthens your immune system. It has saved me from eating Parmesan cheese because it has a cheesy taste to it. And this is nooch. The vegans call it the nooch. Now I want to show you some other things. So, okay, so I keep talking about veggie broth, and you can make your own homemade veggie broth, really simple. You could do it one of 2 ways. You just take your leftover, when you're cutting your onions up, leave all the peels and everything, and put them in a pot with some water. And I like to use some mushroom powder. It doesn't have a lot of salt in it, or mushrooms. But if you don't put that, just let it boil, and you can create a veggie broth. But if you're busy like me, you can get things, and if you're missing your chicken, you can get no chicken broth. So these are boxes of broth. They're fairly inexpensive, depending on, I know Walmart has a bunch of them now, but they also add flavor. So when you're making things, you know, we're talking about oatmeal a minute ago. You can actually get, I showed you the rolled oats, but you can get steel cut oats. And steel cut oats can be made either for breakfast, or you can make them savory if you cook them in a veggie broth or a no chicken broth. It tastes delicious, and sometimes I have them at night. My go-tos are, number 1, basinato or dinosaur kale. This is very easy to cook. It tastes good. You just really simply, you just pull it off the side like this. And then I have my kale. You can eat this raw. It tastes delicious. Now I have to get it down. And then we have, to add flavor, you could also use liquid smoke. And this is just a little touch of that taste for you. Your liquid aminos that you can use. And then for a little sweetness, something that's natural, your organic raw agave nectar, which is also pretty tasty. Now, and of course, my favorite eggplant parmesan, which I still have, but minus the parmesan, and I use the tofu ricotta, typically when I do that, and nutritional yeast. And rather than the way my mother taught me to make them, my grandmother taught me to make them, was to slice them, salt them, then wash them, then dry them, then dip them in flour, egg, and Italian breadcrumbs loaded with a lot of Parmesan cheese. So now what I'll do is I'll do some of the depending on if the eggplant is an old eggplant or a new eggplant, young eggplant, I will still slice it, I will salt it to take some of the bitterness out, wash it completely so the salt is gone. Then I will dry it real well, and I'll still put it in a little flour that's seasoned with a little pepper, a little nutritional yeast, and then I will dip it in some oat milk or almond milk, and then put some panko or breadcrumbs on top of it. I like to use my homemade bread that I grind down and have rather than buying it outright. And then I bake it. So it comes out good. I have my tomato sauce going with no oil, garlic and basil. And then I put my tofu ricotta on top. I'm going to show you, I brought some cheating stuff with me too. So that's delicious. Tofu, don't be afraid. This was bought at Kroger. It's organic. It's good for you. It's easy to cook. It's ominous when you first see it. Some people hate the taste of it, and that's just because they haven't eaten it cooked well. This tofu is like, literally billions of people around the globe are eating tofu. Everybody says it causes a spike in estrogen, and you have to eat a heck of a lot of tofu for that to happen. So I wouldn't worry about it. Another one is tempeh, which is very tasty too. And these are just beans, cultured organic soybeans, and water and brown rice. So it's something that tastes delicious when it's cooked and baked. And of course, you have your cucumbers. There's so many different types of cucumbers. I brought this English cucumber, which tastes great. Your lettuce, your salads that you can have. You can make sauces with, I mentioned before, you can make sauces with some tahini, or you can make salad dressings with tahini and lemon, which is just a little drizzle. Or you can use your lime and some mustard, lime or lemon, and Dijon mustard. It doesn't take very much, and it gives you that flavor, that flavor profile that you really miss when you're switching over to a plant-based diet. And then if you like yogurt, you can get coconut yogurt. There's coconut milk yogurt, there's almond yogurt, and you could add a little bit to dishes that you're making too, and it tastes good, and it's all plant-based. Like this has organic coconut spring water, cassava root, and vegan probiotic cultures in it. So it's healthy for your stomach. Okay, now, guilty pleasures. So we know that processed foods are not the greatest for you, but there are times, me being a reluctant vegan that I am, there are times that I still want that taste. And what troubles me the most about being a vegan is a lot of the food tends to be mushy when you're doing a lot of bowls, when you're putting a lot of things in bowls and everything. So you can get, look at this, apple and maple plant-based breakfast sausages. So one of these little babies does have sodium. That does have sodium. So those that have sodium problems, don't eat them. But every once in a while, I like to make it. I chop it up real fine, and I'll mix it with my vegetables just to give a little taste in my mouth of something different. And then these are really bad. So I may deny that I'm showing you these, but just egg. This stuff is so ridiculously tastes like eggs. It's ridiculous. I laugh all the time. But sometimes if I want to make a fried rice, for example, I don't use a lot of oil. I use a little bit of oil, about a teaspoon of oil, and I'll make fried rice with a lot of vegetables, a lot of peas, carrots, onions, and I like spinach, or I'll put kale in it too. But I'm missing that little chopped egg, so I'll make a little circle of the just egg, and then I'll cook it and then chop it up and add it to my rice. And then total guilty pleasure when I'm having one of my black bean burgers or mushroom burgers. And I know that my boss, Dr. Fall, is going to yell at me when she hears this, but this is plant-based cheddar cheese. It's a cheese alternative. So it's not made with any dairy. It's made with coconut oil, and potato starch, and salt, olive extract, and natural flavors, and paprika. But it is pretty high in sodium. So I have a half a slice, and it sort of lasts forever in the refrigerator. So there are ways that you could do this. You just have to take a chance and just start. Just start somewhere. And join me in the reluctant vegan category just for a while. And then, when you need that support, reach out, and there'll be support there. So I'm going to end the slideshow so I can see your faces, because I can't see anybody on this. Now I'm going to come over to, I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, all right. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, Dr. Joe, there's
Okay.
some questions in the chat.
Okay, yeah. How do I see everybody? I can't, can I?
If they put their cameras on, I don't think
Oh,
everybody has their
all
cameras
right.
on.
Okay. Oh, I see Barbara now. I see Barbara.
You will not be able to see everybody,
Oh, okay.
but
All
we
right. That's
definitely
okay.
can see you, Joe.
Okay, good. That's good. Good. In the kitchen.
Yes, in the
Where I
kitchen.
need to
Wonderful.
be. Where I feel most at home. I'll be having all my meetings in the kitchen now. Can't hear you. Yes, Dr. Fall, can't hear you.
Turn your sound on your computer.
Nope, can't hear. Okay. Are there any questions in the chat?
There are questions.
So Leo had said, what are the thoughts on products like Beyond Beef burgers and other plant-based box products such as these?
Yes, so there's actually a number of articles that have just come out recently, and Dr. Kim Williams, I know, talks about this too, that they say that even though they're processed and they're ultra processed, the evidence is showing right now that they're still better than eating a Big Mac or something from a fast food restaurant. Now, question becomes, over time, are they better than eating meat from a farm that's raising their animals sustainably? And that research is still not conclusive. But in shifting to a plant-based diet as a way of getting yourself into it, if that has to be your way to get in, as long as you don't do it too often, then I think it's probably okay. Okay, Dr. Fall says you showed a lot of processed food at the end of your presentation. You think it's healthier than local meat products? Yeah, that's responsibly farmed. So based on the article that I read on the Beyond Burger versus fast food from the fast food restaurant, the answer is that it's better to eat one of the processed foods. But I agree. This is the research that we have to do, and everybody has to make this decision for themselves. So there's a lot of reasons, and I mentioned that some people are, from an animal standpoint, don't want to hurt any animals, and I think it's something that you have to take into consideration. Any other questions? And then Claire listed, I'd like to share with the group some great resources: Nora Cook's Forks Over Knives, Plant Pure Nation, and Minimalist Baker. And then, yes, look up the Dirty Dozen, all of you, and Clean 15 to learn more about fruits and veggies. And, trying to purchase organic. I know that Kroger now is starting to sell a lot more organic food, and so is Costco. Has a lot of organic food now. And Barbara says, what did you say not to eat? I forget, Barbara. Oh, yeah, don't eat beans before going to massage therapy or going on a plane. It's number 2. Do not eat your lentils before going on a plane. Yeah, you'll know.
Claire also said, can you emphasize on how much protein veggies contain?
Oh, Lord, yes. That's why I was saying it. Everybody's always obsessed with protein, especially in the United States. I feel that it's more than any place that I've been, where vegetables have a lot of protein. You can get, as I said when I showed that one slide, you really need, between 50 and 75 to 80 grams of protein a day. And eating a vegan diet, you can get enough protein from your veggies and from your grains. You don't need to, and then when you add tofu, if you add tofu, it's hempy to everything. It actually helps you get that amount of protein that you need. But you want to make sure that you're getting enough protein because it does cause bone loss. So, all right. Anything else? Is seafood totally out?
I have a question in the chat about
Yeah.
access.
Yes. Okay, access to plants-based foods?
Eating more healthy foods is very expensive. How do you suggest people who live with lower socioeconomic status eat more healthy, reasonable access?
Okay, so in all communities now, there are growing up food justice organizations that are providing access to plant-based foods, veggies especially. We have one here, and what they're trying to do now is actually across the country. They're trying to turn all of the food pantries into more plant-based food pantries. So the other thing is knowing. I know there's an argument that eating plant-based or eating organic is expensive, but if you begin to look at places like Kroger, begin to look at places like Walmart, they're all, and Target even, they're starting to sell organic foods, and they're starting to sell more plant-based
They
foods.
do. I shop at one of those
Yeah,
places,
yeah.
but they are a lot more expensive than the non-organic and the other foods.
Yeah. So, I always recommend to the clients that I work with is, see, if you can't get organic, then at least go to the plant-based. And you can get comparable, you can get a can of beans at Kroger, you can get them at Whole Foods. It's like, you can still get the same thing. You get no salt at Kroger, you can get no salt at Whole Foods. You can still get the same thing. So I think that, while I do understand that a lot of organic food is more expensive, there is a movement across the United States to try and get local, sustainable food in people's mouths. And
There's
then,
one more question. The China
yes,
study is another extensive study book. Do you recommend?
I do recommend the China study. Yes, of course. This is groundbreaking, Jamie. This is a groundbreaking study showing that people in Okinawa who lived on more of a seafood diet, but more plants, really live to be over 100. And we know this, the blue zones, and these people are eating more of a Mediterranean diet. Everybody thinks of a Mediterranean diet as, oh, well, I could have my fish and meat every day. They don't eat fish and meat every day. They eat their fish and their meat for holidays. They eat them on a weekend. It's not big portions like we have in the United States. I went to a restaurant with the family this past week, and the portion of food that they give is so large. I had 3 meals from my vegan dish because they gave a big amount. Carla asked, is seafood totally out as well as all meats? So, Carla, this is the problem, and I think that you have to decide as a human being. There's enough evidence. Some show that the Mediterranean diet, which allows a little seafood and a little meat, as beneficial. It depends on your biology. So, for my biology and my heart issues and my family issues with cancer and with heart disease, it's probably not good for me to do that. And I have people pushing me to do this all the time. I cannot tell you, it's like I'm recovering, and I have people telling me, oh, well, just eat a little piece of fish, it won't hurt you. Just eat a little piece of meat, it won't hurt you. People do that to me all the time. It upsets me. But I understand that they just can't get in their head that I really am. This shift over, we need a community of people that want to shift. You need support. And Carla, if you want to support away from seafood and meat, I will gladly support you. Okay, anything else? Okay, well, thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you,
Reach out if
Dr.
need
Joe.
to. Okay, you're welcome. Bye.
Thank you, Joe.
Bye.
Bye.